I thought I had it all figured out. At 24, I was living what everyone told me was the dream. A good job at a marketing firm, a cozy apartment in the suburbs, and most importantly, Mark. We'd been together for 3 years. And 6 months ago, he got down on one knee at our favorite restaurant. I said yes without hesitation. My sister Jessica was there that night. She hugged me so tight and whispered in my ear that she was so happy for me. I believed her. The wedding was planned for that fall, October 23rd. I had the venue booked, the dress fitted, the invitations ready to mail. My mum spent hours with me picking out flowers and discussing the seating chart. Dad joked about how much this was all costing him, but I could see the pride in his eyes. Jessica was going to be my maid of honor. She helped me taste test cakes, and gave opinions on everything from napkin colors to the DJ playlist. Life was perfect, or so I thought. It was a Tuesday afternoon in June. I'd left work early because of a migraine. All I wanted was to pick up some aspirin and maybe surprise Mark with dinner. But first, I decided to stop by Jessica's place. She'd been going through a rough patch lately. At least, that's what my parents kept saying. She'd quit her job a few months back, claiming burnout, and had been living off savings ever since. Mum was worried about her, constantly asking me to check in. I had a key to her apartment. She'd given it to me years ago for emergencies. I knocked first, but there was no answer. I figured she might be napping or out for a walk, so I let myself in to leave a note and maybe tidy up a bit. The living room was dim, curtains drawn. That's when I heard it. Voices from the bedroom. Laughter. Low, intimate. My heart started pounding. Something told me to leave, to walk away, to pretend I'd never come. But my feet carried me forward. I pushed the bedroom door open. Mark and Jessica were in bed together. The world stopped. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. They scrambled to cover themselves, shock written all over their faces. Mark started saying my name, reaching for his clothes. Jessica pulled the sheets up to her chin, her eyes wide. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, frozen, as my entire world collapsed around me. Finally, I found my voice. It came out cold, mechanical. How long? Mark tried to speak, but Jessica cut him off. Emily, please, let me explain. It just happened. We didn't mean for this to. How long? 3 months, Mark whispered. 3 months. A quarter of my engagement. While I was planning our wedding, picking out centerpieces, addressing invitations to our future together, he was sleeping with my sister. I pulled the engagement ring off my finger and threw it at him. It bounced off his chest and fell somewhere on the floor. Then I turned and walked out. I drove home on autopilot, and only when I locked my apartment door behind me, did I finally break down. I thought my family would support me. I was wrong. When I told my parents what happened, Mum's first response wasn't horror or anger. It was concern. For Jessica. Oh honey, Jessica's been going through such a hard time. She's not thinking clearly. You know how fragile she's been. Dad nodded along. And Mark. Well, men can be weak. Maybe he was confused. Confused. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'd just been betrayed by both my sister and my fiancé, and they were making excuses for them. What about me? I asked. Don't I get to be upset? Don't I get to be hurt? Mum reached across the table and patted my hand. Of course you do, sweetheart, but you're stronger than Jessica. You always have been. You'll bounce back. Jessica needs us more right now. That became the narrative. Jessica was fragile. Jessica was struggling. Jessica needed protection and understanding. And I, apparently, was strong enough to handle being betrayed and abandoned. The worst part? I broke up with Mark immediately, obviously, but within 2 weeks, he and Jessica were officially together, not hiding it, not ashamed. My parents invited them both to Sunday dinner. When I refused to come, Mum called me selfish. Emily, we need to move forward as a family. You can't hold on to anger forever. Jessica is finally happy again. Happy. My sister was happy with my ex-fiancé, and I was supposed to just accept it. There was one person who saw through all of it. My grandfather, William. Grandpa had always been different from my parents. He was quieter, more observant. While my parents fawned over Jessica's every mood swing and dramatic episode, Grandpa watched with knowing eyes. 2 weeks after the breakup, he called me. Emily, come have lunch with me tomorrow. Just the two of us. We met at his favorite diner, a little place with red vinyl booths and the best apple pie in the state. He didn't waste time with small talk. Your parents are wrong, he said simply. What happened to you is inexcusable. Jessica's struggles don't give her the right to destroy your life. And Mark is a coward for what he did. I started crying right there in the booth. They were the first words of validation I'd heard in 2 weeks. Grandpa reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You don't owe them forgiveness, Emily. Not until they've earned it. And from what I've seen, they haven't even tried. Mom says I need to be strong, that I need to think about the family. Being strong doesn't mean being a doormat, Grandpa said firmly. And family is supposed to protect you, not sacrifice you for someone else's comfort. We talked for 3 hours that day. He told me about his own life, about the hard choices he'd made, about the people he'd had to walk away from. Sometimes, he said, the bravest thing you can do is leave. Over the next few months, things got worse. Jessica and Mark were everywhere. Family dinners, holiday parties. They'd show up at the same coffee shop I frequented. Jessica even had the audacity to ask if I wanted to talk things through, so we could heal as sisters. I was drowning in a town full of memories and people who wanted me to swallow my pain for everyone else's convenience. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't heal. Every corner reminded me of what I'd lost. That's when I made the decision. I was going to leave. Not just the neighborhood, not just the city. I was going to put 3,000 miles between me and this life. I applied for jobs on the West Coast. Within a month, I had an offer in Seattle, a fresh start in a city where nobody knew my story, where I could rebuild without constantly running into my ex-fiancé and my sister holding hands. I told my parents over dinner. Mom's face fell. Dad looked disappointed. Emily, don't you think you're overreacting? Seattle is so far away. That's the point, I said. What about family? Mom pressed. What about us? I looked at her steadily. What about me? You chose Jessica over me. You're still choosing her. Every single day. Mom's eyes filled with tears. That's not fair. We love both of you. Then why does it only feel like you love her? There was no good answer to that question. There never had been. I told Grandpa last. I was afraid he'd be disappointed, afraid he'd try to convince me to stay. But when I explained my plan over lunch at our usual diner, he smiled. Good for you, he said. You deserve a life free from all this toxicity. I'm going to miss you, I said, and I meant it. He was the only person in my family who'd made me feel seen, valued, loved. I'll miss you too, kiddo, but this isn't goodbye forever. We've got phones. We've got email, and I'm planning to live at least another 20 years, so you better visit. I laughed through my tears. Deal. Before I left, Grandpa handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $5,000. For your new start, he said. Don't argue, just take it. I hugged him tight, breathing in his familiar scent of Old Spice and peppermint. Thank you, Grandpa, for everything, for believing me. Always, Emily, always. Seattle was everything I needed it to be. Cold, rainy, anonymous. Nobody here knew about Jessica or Mark. Nobody pitied me or expected me to forgive the unforgivable. I was just Emily, a new marketing coordinator at a tech startup, trying to figure out the bus system and find the best coffee shop in Capitol Hill. The first year was hard. I was lonely. I missed Grandpa terribly, but slowly, I started to heal. I made friends at work. I joined a book club. I started hiking on weekends, exploring the mountains and forests that surrounded the city. Grandpa called every Sunday. He'd tell me about his week, ask about mine, and never once mentioned my parents or Jessica unless I brought them up first. Sometimes he'd send care packages, homemade cookies, old photos of us together, books he thought I'd like. How are they? I asked once, about 2 years after I'd left. Honestly, I don't see them much anymore, Grandpa said. I made it clear I didn't approve of how they handled things. Your mother didn't like that. Grandpa, I don't want to cause problems between you and Emily. You didn't cause anything. They did. And I'm old enough and stubborn enough to stand by my principles. By year 3, I'd been promoted twice. I had a small but close group of friends. I'd even started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee dates and movie nights. Testing the waters of trust again. My therapist said I was making excellent progress. I rarely thought about my old life anymore. When I did, it felt distant, like something that had happened to someone else. It was a Thursday morning in early November when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Emily Patterson? A woman's voice, professional and gentle. Yes. My name is Karen Miller. I'm calling from Mercy Hospital. I'm sorry to inform you that your grandfather, William Patterson, passed away peacefully in his sleep last night. The world tilted. I sat down hard on my kitchen floor, phone pressed to my ear, unable to speak. He was 87, the woman continued softly. He went peacefully. No pain. The funeral arrangements are being handled by Morrison's funeral home. I'm so sorry for your loss. I thanked her somehow, hung up, and sobbed on my kitchen floor for an hour. Grandpa was gone. My one ally, my one constant support, the only person who'd loved me unconditionally through everything. He was gone. I flew home for the funeral, 4 years since I'd left, and I was back in the town I'd sworn I'd never return to. The funeral home was packed. Grandpa had been well loved in the community. 50 years as a high school history teacher will do that. My parents were there, of course. Mum looked older, more tired. Dad's hair had gone almost completely grey. They saw me and approached cautiously. "Emily," Mom said, "it's good to see you." "Hi, Mom, Dad." The conversation was stilted, awkward. We exchanged pleasantries about the flight, the weather, anything but the elephant in the room. Then I saw her, Jessica, wearing a black dress, holding hands with Mark. They were married now, I'd heard through the grapevine. No big wedding, just a courthouse ceremony. Jessica's eyes met mine across the room. For a moment, I thought I saw guilt there, but then she looked away, and Mark pulled her closer. I spent the funeral surrounded by strangers who'd known Grandpa, avoiding my family. It was easier that way. 3 days after the funeral, we gathered at the lawyer's office for the reading of the will. I'd almost skipped it. I didn't care about money, but something told me Grandpa would want me there. The lawyer, Mr. Henderson, was an older gentleman with kind eyes. He invited us to sit, Mum and Dad on one side, Jessica and Mark on the other, me, alone, in a chair by myself. Mr. Henderson opened the folder and cleared his throat. William Patterson's last will and testament, updated and notarized 6 months before his passing. He was of completely sound mind. I can attest to that personally. He began reading. Small bequests to friends, donations to charities. Then he got to the family section. To my daughter Susan and son-in-law Robert, I leave my collection of history books and my teaching awards. I hope they remind you of the importance of truth and fairness. Mum looked confused. That was it. Books and plaques. To my granddaughter Jessica, I leave my wristwatch and my set of cufflinks. Jessica's face flushed. A watch and cufflinks. That was all. Mr. Henderson paused, looked at me, and continued. To my beloved granddaughter Emily, I leave the entirety of my remaining estate. This includes my house at 4782 Maple Drive, currently valued at approximately $400,000. My investment portfolio, valued at approximately $700,000. My savings accounts, totaling $150,000. And all other personal property not specifically bequeathed above. The room went silent. That's $1.2 million, Dad said, stunned. Mr. Henderson nodded. Approximately, yes. Jessica stood up. That can't be right. Why would he leave everything to Emily? Mr. Henderson pulled out another sheet of paper. Mr. Patterson left a personal letter to be read in the event of questions. With your permission. Nobody said anything, so he read. To my family, if you're hearing this, it means you're questioning my decision. Let me be clear. Emily is the only one among you who had the courage to stand up for what was right. When she was betrayed by those she trusted most, she didn't compromise her dignity. She didn't accept cruelty disguised as family loyalty. She walked away from toxicity, even when it cost her everything. Jessica, you made choices that devastated your sister, and you never apologized. Susan and Robert, you chose to protect Jessica's feelings over Emily's well-being. You taught Emily that her pain mattered less than her sister's comfort. Emily rebuilt her life from nothing. She didn't ask for my help, though I gave it freely. She deserved support 4 years ago, and she deserves this inheritance now. This is not a punishment for the rest of you. It's a recognition of Emily's strength and character. Do with this information what you will, but know that this decision was made with a clear mind and a full heart. The silence that followed was deafening. It took exactly 4 hours for my phone to start ringing. Mom first. Emily, we need to talk about this. Family is supposed to share. Your grandfather clearly wasn't thinking straight. He was thinking perfectly straight, Mom. The lawyer confirmed it, but Jessica is your sister. And we're your parents. Don't we deserve something? You got what you deserved, I said quietly. What you earned. I hung up. Dad called next. More reasonable, but the message was the same. This will tear the family apart. It was already torn apart, I told him. 4 years ago. You just didn't notice because I was the one bleeding. Jessica sent texts. Dozens of them. Starting with shock, moving to anger, ending with desperation. How can you do this to me? I'm your sister. I made mistakes, but don't I deserve forgiveness? Mark even called, which was audacious. Look, I know I messed up, But Jessica really needs help. She's not doing well financially. Can't you at least give her something? I blocked his number without responding. The calls kept coming. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Family, friends. Even Jessica's therapist. Somehow, all with variations of the same message: share the money. Think of the family. Don't be selfish. Selfish. That word again. 2 weeks after the will reading, I received a letter from a lawyer. Jessica was contesting the will. She claimed Grandpa had been unduly influenced, that he wasn't of sound mind, that I'd manipulated him. I hired my own lawyer. Ms. Chen was sharp, experienced, and unimpressed by Jessica's claims. Do you have evidence of your relationship with your grandfather? She asked. I showed her 4 years of phone records, weekly calls, sometimes twice a week, emails, photos of care packages, cards he'd sent for my birthday, for holidays, for no reason at all, text message conversations about books, history, life, and your sister. I pulled up Jessica's social media. In 4 years, she'd mentioned Grandpa exactly 3 times. Birthday posts, obligatory and brief. Ms. Chen smiled. This is going to be easy. She was right. The judge took one look at the evidence and dismissed Jessica's contest. Grandpa had been completely competent. He'd met with his lawyer multiple times. He'd explicitly discussed his reasoning, and the letter he'd left made his intentions crystal clear. Jessica's lawyer had advised her not to pursue it, but she'd insisted. Now she was out $10,000 in legal fees with nothing to show for it. I flew back one last time. Not for them, for me. I needed closure. I asked them all to meet me at a coffee shop. Neutral territory. Mum, Dad, Jessica, and Mark all showed up. They looked at me with a mixture of hope and resentment. I didn't waste time. I'd rehearsed this speech for weeks. 4 years ago, my life fell apart. Jessica, you slept with my fiancé. Mum and Dad, you defended her. You told me to be strong, to forgive, to think of the family. You invited my ex-fiancé to family dinners while I was home crying. You chose her comfort over my pain, every single time. When I left, not one of you apologized. Not one of you reached out to say you'd been wrong. Grandpa was the only person who stood by me. He was the only one who told me I deserved better. Now he's gone, and suddenly you all care about me again. But it's not really me you care about, is it? It's the money. You've called, texted, sent lawyers. You've accused me of being selfish, of tearing apart the family. But where were you when I needed you? When I was 24 and heartbroken and my whole world was ending, Jessica started to cry. I was sick, Emily. I was depressed. I made a terrible mistake. You're right. You did. And you never apologized. Not once in 4 years. I'm apologizing now. Now that there's money involved. How convenient. Mum stood up. Emily, please. We're family. Doesn't that mean anything? I looked at her for a long moment. It used to. But family isn't just blood, Mom. It's showing up. It's choosing each other. It's protecting each other. You failed me when I needed you most. And Grandpa saw that. So what now? Dad asked. You're just going to keep all of it. You're going to let your sister struggle. Jessica isn't my responsibility. She's an adult with a husband. She made her choices. I'm making mine. I stood up. I came here to tell you this in person because I owed you that much. But this is the last time. I'm going back to Seattle. I'm using Grandpa's gift to build a life he would be proud of. And I'm done carrying guilt that isn't mine. Jessica reached for my arm. Please, Emily, I'm begging you. I gently removed her hand. You should have begged 4 years ago, when it might have mattered. I walked out of that coffee shop and didn't look back. I sold Grandpa's house. It was too painful to keep. Full of memories I wanted to preserve in my heart, not in real estate. The money from the sale brought the total inheritance to nearly $1.5 million. I could have done anything with it. Retired early, bought a mansion, traveled the world. But I kept thinking about Grandpa, about his values, about what he'd want me to do. So I created a foundation, the William Patterson Scholarship Fund, for young people who'd been betrayed by their families but refused to give up. Kids aging out of foster care, teens kicked out for being gay, young adults escaping abuse. Every year, the foundation gives out 10 scholarships, full ride to college, plus living expenses and mentorship. I'm personally involved in the selection process. I read every application, meet every finalist. When I see their stories, their resilience, their courage, their determination to build better lives, I see myself at 24. And I see Grandpa, refusing to let me fall. The rest of the money I invested wisely. I bought a small house in Seattle with a view of the Sound. I donated to causes Grandpa cared about: education, libraries, history preservation. I'm 32 now. I have a career I love, friends who feel like family, and a partner who treats me with the respect and love I deserve. On my bookshelf is a framed photo of Grandpa and me at that diner, both of us laughing. Sometimes people ask if I regret cutting off my family. The truth is, I don't think about them much anymore. I've built a life so full of genuine love and support that there's no room for people who see me as an obligation or an ATM. Mum sends a card every Christmas. I don't open them. Jessica tried to friend me on social media a few years ago. I declined. Dad reached out last year when he was diagnosed with diabetes, hoping I'd help with medical bills. I sent information about state assistance programs and nothing more. I don't carry anger anymore. That's the gift Grandpa really gave me, not the money. The permission to let go. The validation that I deserved better. The reminder that real family, the kind that matters, is built on love and respect, not obligation and guilt. Every year on the anniversary of his death, I visit his grave. I bring flowers and sit for a while, telling him about the scholarship recipients, about my life, about the world he'd find so changed and yet so familiar. Thank you, Grandpa, I always say at the end, for seeing me, for believing in me, for giving me the courage to choose myself. The wind rustles through the trees around the cemetery, and I swear I can feel him smiling. Some people never learn what family really means. They think it's about blood, about obligation, about keeping peace at any cost. But Grandpa taught me different. Family is about showing up, about protecting each other, about choosing each other, every single day. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who call themselves family but treat you like you're disposable. I walked away, and I built something beautiful in the space they left behind. That's not a tragedy, that's a triumph. And I know, wherever he is, Grandpa would agree. This is the story of how my grandfather's final choice changed my life. Not because of the money, but because of what it represented. Love, validation, justice. If you've ever been told to forgive people who never apologized, to be strong for people who never protected you, to sacrifice yourself for family who never chose you, this story is for you. You deserve better, and it's never too late to choose yourself. Thank you for listening to this story on Timeless Whisper, where we share the real, raw, and remarkable stories that shape our lives.